Anybody know what that smoke is in lower Manhattan?
I'm sorry, say again?
A lot of smoke in lower Manhattan.
A lot of smoke in lower Manhattan?
Coming out of the top of the World Trade Center building, a major fire. Yeah.
Take 2 and 2, 1. This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
See that?
I want him held. I want justice. And there's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said "Wanted, dead or alive." And this nation must seize the moment. And it's this: either we defend freedom so that our children and grandchildren can grow up in a peaceful world, or we blink.
United, secure Afghanistan, as known in history as the graveyard of empires.
At the airport, thousands trying to flee the Afghan capital following the Taliban takeover. Frenzied diplomatic evacuations also underway, with governments scrambling to respond.
An attack by a group known as ISIS-K.
Hello everybody, this is John, and I am joined with my good mate War Spirit and Tyr today. How are you doing, guys?
Doing good yourself?
I'm doing all right.
Doing pretty good. That's good. Well, yeah, so we're here, September 11th, 2021, 20 years on the dot since the attack on the nation. So, me and War Spirit are... I was kind of the last generation that could, say, hey, yeah, I remember that. And it's very interesting. Ty, or my buddy War Spirit, he's been with the program, he's been alive for about 10 years longer than I've been, so he was quite old. In fact, I think he was a teenager when it all went down.
Yep.
So there's a lot of interesting stories to share, especially with the youth of today, as far as what that looks like. Because another thing too to take into account is just how I think desensitized we've become as a nation to tragedy. Because 2001, September 11th was kind of like the first big thing. It was the first shooting, terrorist attack, murderous rampage that we'd really seen on a modern scale. But of course, since Pearl Harbor, it was the first time that we really got attacked successfully in our own country. And it's a somber day, and there are certain times, and I understand, it's like it was 20 years ago, that sort of thing, but it is still echoed out throughout today, either by memory, the loss of family, the loss of relatives, but also just as an American. Sorry about that. 1 second. But, just as an American, just kind of looking back at what has made the America that I've grown up in. So I was about 4 years old when it happened. And, you know, just to share my story and to share, War Spirit will share his, and just how it made us feel, how that looked, what that meant when it happened. And it is interesting to kind of get the two perspectives, because me, I was very young. I didn't really understand anything about anything. Whereas War Spirit was bucking young bronking young buck, and he was just...
Man, try to say that
go.
3 times faster after you've had a 6-pack.
Exactly. And, I mean, I'm kind of... I needed to get my caffeine in me, but I haven't gotten a chance today. But
Nor have I.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was about 17. Yeah, I was about 17 when it all went down, and man, it was crazy. So, and I tell this story every year, but just recap real quick. I was working at Ace Hardware. I was a clerk there / stalker, and my coworker, believe you know my coworker John, Mel. She was working with me on the same shift and the day before, and she needed time for college class, and so I was supposed to have off on Tuesday. But she asked me, she's like, hey, I need this time off. So, yeah, no problem. So we switched days off. Earlier that week, actually, yeah. So it's actually, no, I had off Tuesday. I wasn't supposed to. And so I woke up, got up, went in my room and, or out of my room rather, and went to the kitchen. We had a bun coffee maker. Mom already had coffee, so I poured me a cup, and about that time, we heard a knock at the door, and my granddad come running up the steps, and he's all, hey, somebody, something's happening on Fox News. There's a plane that hit the Twin Towers. So, oh, wow. So he runs into the living room. We turn on Fox News on the satellite. I believe it was channel 236. Yep. And right in time to see the second plane flying in to hit the second tower.
Yeah, and that's like that was kind of the waking up for the country, like because you know, even in the memorial video that I showed at the beginning here, you can hear like the radio traffic controllers and like the airplanes. They were like sitting there. Heard there's a big fire in New York, Lower Manhattan. There's a big fire in Lower Manhattan. Yeah, it's some kind of fire in the World Trade Center, because like nobody was really sure. There was this rumor that a plane just flew into it.
The last thing that this great nation thought is that we were under attack.
Right.
We had grown so used to our security that we took it for granted.
Right. And really, if I'm completely honest, 9/11 is my earliest childhood memory. That is something that I have remembered. Because I was sitting in like a chair, and I think it was my older sister. I think it was Liz. And she was standing there, and like I always say it, like I thought we were watching a movie. Like I think I had just woken up. It was pretty early for us in New Mexico, you know. And
7 o'clock.
Yeah, and so I think like it was kind of a slow day. Like I remember that day, like I don't even think I had to really worry about anything. It was just general, like had to be. I think it had to be a weekend or something. But
no, it was Tuesday.
Oh, it was Tuesday? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, it's been a long one. But yeah, no, I don't know what was really going on, but I know that originally it was kind of a chill day. Like I think I stayed home from school anyways or something, like preschool or whatever. Like because I was going to preschool, but I do remember my sister was kind of standing there, and I at first we were just kind of like, oh wow, you know, because even just the sight of the Twin Towers on fire was just enough to be like, whoa, that's new. that
Right.
something's up. That's crazy. Who started a fire in the World Trade Center? Because everyone's kind of going back and forth. Like, was it an angry office worker? Was it a protest from like somebody who had beef with the World Trade Center? There's all kinds of things going through the head. And then there was this rumor that a plane hit it that started floating around all the news stations. And at that moment, it wasn't really, like, as far as I know, like, the rest of your regular scheduled broadcasting was kind of still going, And it wasn't really, like, this big worry. But I do remember, I don't specifically, I've seen the footage, but I don't really fully remember the plane hitting the towers. But I do remember that my sister, like, screamed. Like, oh! Like, because this was live. Like, there was a live view. It was kind of the talk of the country because, it's not every day you get a skyscraper on fire. It's kind of a big deal. And
that was like insult to injury, right? Because there was already a skyscraper on fire, and then the second plane come in, and that's when everybody realized this wasn't an accident.
Yeah, this was intentional.
Yeah.
And that word started coming up, and that's when my sister, I guess, because I was talking to my other sister, my younger sister, but older than me, Ivory. She was asleep, and my older sister Liz ran into her bedroom and was like, Ivory, Ivory, shaking her awake. Ivory's like, what? Because they were like 15, 14 at the time, or like 15, 12, whatever. And America's under attack. And of course, my sister in her like days, like waking up, she's like, she's thinking like, did the Chinese finally do something? Like, who's coming and attacking us? And we all, and everyone's sitting around the television. At this point, as a kid, from my perspective, I'm still like, dang, this must be one intense show. Because I didn't realize that this was a real thing. But I do remember distinct images of the smoke. That's the one thing I do remember as a kid, is watching the buildings, watching them, and I do distinctly remember seeing them fall. And when they fell, again, the hysteria, the crying, like my sisters were like bawling. I do remember that, and of course not really understanding, other than like, I think they kind of like told me they were like, a lot of people just died. And I was just kind of like, I was scared, and especially as a kid. Like, that was, I'm not really, nowadays when I hear like, see footage like that, it's like a lot of people just died. It's kind of like, that kind of blank face, just kind of like another day in America, But,
and I'm sure it was really scary for a little kid. It was bad enough for adults, because
it was very scary.
They called basically the whole oil and gas industry called their guys in out of the field.
Yep.
Everybody got all the companies got put on lockdown, because we didn't know, even as a nation, well, what else is going to happen?
Is this coming?
Yeah, because we assumed, well, if they were able to hit the Twin Towers, what else are they going to hit? And of course, there were other attempts. They hit the Pentagon. Didn't do much damage to it, and then of course the plane in Pennsylvania that went down in that field. Right. But we were thinking maybe it was nationwide.
Yeah, it was one of those things. It's like, what next? Invasion?
Yeah.
Bombs in the streets?
My dad came home, and we did a full inventory of our pew stuff and got everything ready just in case, because we didn't know.
Yeah, and that's a very relatable thing. Like, my father, being in the oil field industry, welder, he, because at the time, this is something too to kind of explain to the younger audiences, is that there wasn't you didn't just pull up your smartphone and see like, a national emergency. They didn't really have that for phones. And you didn't have people like texting you. That didn't really exist. Maybe you had a pager if you were lucky, like if you're rich.
Well, most of the guys out in the field, of course, because almost everybody in the field listens to talk radio.
Yeah.
And so it was on the Rush Limbaugh show.
Yeah.
Rush actually stopped it No, it wasn't Rush yet. It was Fox News, the Fox Radio News before, because Rush hadn't come on yet. But once it all hit, by the time he was actually cut his show off so they could continue. But he was there.
Right.
That's how most of the guys in the field found out what was going on, is through 1390 AM.
I couldn't imagine what that would be like. I mean, and well, I'll get to that in a bit, because bookmark that. Like, I want to talk about that unity here in a minute. But just that immediate fear, or fear, and also just like, wait, what does this mean? And of course, the entire oil field coming home like that, you'd think it was Christmas, or this is kind of the antithesis, And I don't remember the trip to the surplus, but that was something my family did, and I think to this day, like, I'd like to talk to the owner of the bunker and ask him, like, what the sales were that day, because to this day I still think that was the busiest day in the bunker's history, because I think they stayed open. I'm not really sure, but I know my dad said, or maybe it was the Alamo, that place that used to be.
It was. I was gonna say, I don't think the bunker was open yet. It would have been the Alamo.
Yeah, it probably was the Alamo right there by Kmart, and I think it was like that was the heyday of the Alamo. And I still have these pants. I might show them off here in a bit. I can go dig them up real quick, but I have these. Oh yeah,
I remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have these little, like, Vietnam era pants, and my family bought everyone camouflage, which I thought was rather strange. But that was it. It was like, we're gonna need camouflage. We're gonna be like, I don't know really what my folks, like, backside thinking was with that, like what they were going for, but they were like buying supplies, cooking stuff, everything. Like, my folks were going ham and rushing back to the house and just sitting there, like, waiting for word. What is going on? And I remember it was a very restless night. It's just like, what else is coming?
And see, and I remember people talking about that too. And of course, already, there were shortages of stuff a little bit. We didn't really hear as much about it as we do now. Maybe that's because everybody talks about it on social media. But there was people going, buying lots of food and stuff like that. My family we've always been kind of in the prepping mindset.
Right.
And so we didn't really go out and run and grab a bunch of stuff. We just hunkered down. In fact, the next day, since nothing happened, we went to church, because Wednesday night church was still a thing at Bloomfield Assembly. I went to youth, and by then we'd already heard that there was this Muslim fella named Osama bin Laden that was the ringleader of this clan, this terrorist organization called Al Qaeda.
Right.
All new words for me. Never heard of Al Qaeda.
Right.
Never heard of Osama bin Laden.
Never really much cared about the whole Middle Eastern thing.
No, not at all.
Yep.
And I was angry. I was furious. In fact, my youth pastor, of course, he admittedly probably did the right thing, was, trying, calming everybody down, said, well, we gotta pray for these people because they don't know Jesus, and I'm like, yeah, I want to pray for them that I can help them meet Jesus.
Yeah.
And he didn't like that very much.
Speed them up. They're all blowing themselves up for Allah anyway.
Yeah. The next week after that, I went down to my Marine recruiter and talked to him about joining. Tried to. I've told you that story already. Just ended up not being God's will.
Scoliosis, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy times, man. For a solid probably like 2 weeks, it's crazy. This country was where I feel that I wish it would stay. We were all united. It didn't matter if we were left or if we were right. We were all Americans.
Right, which is what brought me back to like the radio message to the oil field, you know? That immediate, like, you're looking over, you know, and if you're familiar with this area, you're like looking over the sand and the hills, and I couldn't imagine, you know, you're watching the skies, you're watching around you what's going on. Is there someone sneaking through here? You know, just like what level of attack are we at?
Speaking of the skies, that was another thing that week that was eerily crazy. There were no planes.
Yeah.
Not one single plane was in the sky.
Yep. And just going back to that, and just like that immediate, everybody needs to know we need to go. You know, we need to go home. We need to be with our families right now. And that's just it. Is like, you know, something that really got an emotional reaction out of me was seeing, I have a friend who's a firefighter. He switches between La Plata and Bloomfield and Aztec. He's a volunteer firefighter, and he went out today, and he was over, I think it was like FHS, Farmington High School, and they were paying tribute to the firefighters at 9/11, and that really, you know, that really touched my heart, like just watching them and just that heroism, and that's just it, is like at no point during any of these memorial services, during any of these times of mourning as Americans, do I think about, oh, well, those Democrats weren't doing nothing for us.
Right.
You know, and I would hope that the Democrats also haven't become so divided where they think that as well, of Republicans or conservatives or libertarians or whatever label you smack on the dog. But that being said, it's one of those things of that spirit of unity is where I wanted to go, and it's that final say, because when things are scary like that, that's when people wake up. And that's what's sad about humans, and we can see this throughout history, is like everyone's so divided, everyone's so bitter, everyone's so hateful until they're attacked. And it's kind of like that classic, you know, school bully thing where it's like this new kid shows up and starts picking on the kid that he was picking on. You know, it's like, hey, that's my kid. You know, and it's that same thing where we just like put all differences aside. There are over 2,000 people in a building that's crumbling, you know, and there are, and Lord knows where else, right? Like what's going on. Like even at the point of political correctness being tossed in to the wayside. Like, I hear rumors, and this is just a rumor, I'm not going to name a place because I don't want to cause any defamation lawsuits, but there was a gas station south of Farmington that was ran by a bunch of Middle Easterners, and apparently they were celebrating the day after September 11th. They were ran clean out of town.
Yep.
And
I remember that very vividly.
Yeah. So, if it was a genuine thing, then I guess very well. Then I don't really care about defamation, but yeah, there was that, and to me, because I'm sure it was Democrats and Republicans alike realizing, like, you are celebrating the death of 2,000 Americans, and you think we're just going to sit back and be okay with that? You know, especially on American soil. Now, I understand Palestine, Pakistan, Egypt, all of them were marching down the streets, you know, with their flags waving and smiling and all that. That's their business. They're enemies, you know. You know, that doesn't really surprise me. But if they do that here, that's what I'm glad to hear. That we united as a nation, as well as help. There was so much help. It was like that same spirit I saw when Houston got flooded. People all the way from here in Farmington getting their boats ready to go down there and do rescue missions. You know, that same thing where I sit down and it's that I don't care what you are, I don't care what your political bullcrap ideology is, I'm here because you're an American and you're my brother and my sister. And we're going to get you out of there. And I saw that, we see that very clearly in New York on that day with just how many people were like being pushed back by the security people, the trained personnel, like the firefighters and the police and everything. Like, no, this isn't safe. And people were just, I don't care. I want to help. People were digging through rubble. Just regular people like you and me, just joining in with the firefighters, with the police. And a part of me asks myself every day if that's still with us. If we
most of the people, if you'll see photos of them, because it's New York, right? So your average worker is going to have like business office clothes. And so there was guys like with like suits on digging through rocks.
And that's just it. It brings a tear to my eye more than even the tragedy is the curiosity is if we still have that about us as Americans.
I think, John, 100% we do. And let me give a caveat to that. Because the little bit older generation, your Gen Xers, they're still here. And they would step up and do that. Now, the millennials and Gen Zs, they might not necessarily do it at first, but you see there's something about leadership. There is, and hear me talk, and I'm sure you get tired of me talking about it, but there's something about leadership. When you as a leader step up and take those reins, the other people, your Joe Blows that might not necessarily know what to do are going to step and lock. Yep. And these kids, they might not, again, they probably have different viewpoints, this, that, and the other. It's not going to matter when it's your life on the line.
Right. And that's just something too, is when tragedy strikes, again, and I mean in a massive way, and it's not an if, it's a when. Yeah. Let's be honest. And I don't mean to cause fear. I'm not here like CNN telling you, freak out. I'm telling you that it is what it is. You make of that what you will.
Well, and you have to be careful with that too, because I'm telling everybody this, don't let somebody take advantage of that, because Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals states that to never let a crisis go to waste. Okay, that's why every time there has been a shooting, right, that's when they start bringing up trying to do gun control, right, because they're trying to take advantage of that crisis.
Yep. Now,
thankfully, that's the weird thing with 9/11. And maybe it's because there wasn't really nobody had a dog in the race, right?
Right.
We did all pull together. Now, my fear is the next tragedy, the next big tragedy, if and when it ever hits, is going to be something that the left can use for control.
Right. Which is troublesome, but a very real threat, because I've seen it, and this isn't just a bias. This isn't, because this isn't just that bias like anger. It's a genuine fear, because every one of these since 9/11, from Sandy Hook to Aztec High School, has been used by people who often don't even come from the areas that this crap happens in. And
I was being facetious with the if and when, because there's something that happened in 2019. I don't know if you remember what happened that affected the entire country and is still ongoing.
Oh, yes. COVID. Which I've already seen articles that kind of made me really pissed this morning. Oh, you people need to stop remembering 9/11 because every day a 9/11 happens with COVID. I'm like...
See, they're taking advantage of the crisis.
Yeah. And that's just it. And if you look at our rights, and that is a parallel, like I want to point that out, is like, let's talk about for a minute how America changed after 9/11. There was these things that were put in place originally as, let's just make sure that we get things settled, and then we can go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Notice that the
well,
government...
and also, I mean, if you had a small, of course, I didn't ever fly them, but I know people who did. If you had a small pocket knife, like in your pocket pre 9/11, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
As long as it wasn't a big knife, they didn't care.
Right. And you didn't
Now
have to
it's
take
a
your shoes
big deal.
off. You didn't have to empty your freaking water bottle. And
Correct. All
this
these
other
things.
Stuff, like, you know, and
there is a societal change.
Right.
Just
and
like
it stayed around.
COVID.
And that's really what bothers me with COVID is everyone's still buying this idea that that things are going to go back to normal. Well, here's another thing that was institutioned because of 9/11 was something called the Patriot Act.
Yes, and I disagreed with it then.
Yeah, and there's so many people who did, but that's just it, is be aware that they did use 9/11 later than just on the day, but they did use it to gain control and strip more of your rights, and in the case of 9/11 specifically, your privacy away from you, so they could watch you.
Well, see, and that was for the most part, and at the time, to give kind of some background to people, because in today's society, we think of things, because all this stuff is like right at our fingertips, right? The internet, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
The issue, I think the reason why it was so easy to gain control with the Patriot Act then is most people didn't really use that stuff that much then. So it wasn't like, oh, well, you're invading my privacy, because most people didn't even have internet in their houses still.
Right.
And so your average Joe Blow citizen thought, well, this is just for the terrorists, to keep track of the terrorists. I'm fine with that.
Right. But it's also one of those things, too, and the biggest question, like, if we're going to... If anybody really wants to get into that, like, I just want you to kind of, like, look at yourself and wonder, well, if I was, you know, and this is kind of what's resulted in so much control over Americans is... If you look at a study between, like, children, for example, who have very, very, very strict parents, you'll find out that they're actually just really... What that does with the children is just make them really good at hiding stuff. And finding out how the best way to hide stuff is. And so what you've resulted in is basically a... Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that security is bad. But the honest truth of it is, at the end of the day, if a terrorist wanted to do something... Just like a school shooter, just like anything else, they can do it, which proves that the Patriot Act, the invasion of Americans' privacy, is outdated.
Well, if you'll notice, how many plots have been that we know of have been thwarted due to the Patriot Act?
None that they'd talk to us about. So we
Exactly.
have to assume no.
None that we know of, right?
All right. And then also, here's another thing. How many terrorists have been caught by the TSA?
Not very many.
Plane? None. Like, I mean,
So-
okay. I guess
so-
that'd be a bit fair, but...
There's been a few, but not very many. The point that I'm trying to make is all along that wasn't the real motive for the Patriot Act.
Right.
Because they have used on the flip side though, how many people's rights have been thwarted due to the Patriot Act?
Countless.
How many people have been put on a no-fly list that do not deserve and then have hell getting off of it just because they have a similar name to some Haji over in Afghanistan?
Or alias or whatever.
Correct.
And not to mention, like, because the Middle Easterners down in Afghanistan decided to fly shit into our towers, I now have lost my right to have a freaking camera on my computer without my little NSA agent buddy going in, your dick's looking big today, John. I don't really see, the point. I don't see, and that's just it. I'm trying to break the illusion because I'm in complete agreement with you, man. I really am. That's just the point, is that it was never the initial cause. Like, they're going to say, oh, it was because we don't want people, we don't want another 9/11 on our hands. Well, I don't see how getting in without a warrant to everyone's personal activity is going to stop a 9/11. Maybe if you did it to the Afghanistanis, maybe.
If every time that the government has enacted any kind of law that makes themselves bigger, it does not accomplish anything. Look at 1934. They enacted the National Firearms Act in 1934 because supposedly all these gangsters were using machine guns. But by 1934, they've actually already killed all the gangsters because Bonnie and Clyde and Matt Dillon, all those guys were actually in the earlier 30s.
Were dead, yeah.
Yeah, they were all locked up or dead by then. But, again, never let a crisis go to waste.
Yep, the law never went away.
Correct. And it was it was easier, and it gets a little bit harder and a little bit harder. And we're going to be getting into something that the internet and realization actually helped stop. But the ATF was able to take that bit of information and get it passed through Congress before the majority of your farmers and stuff even ever saw it on a newspaper.
Yep. So thank goodness for the internet, but damn the internet.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, because the internet reminded us, and I'm going to jump ahead in our list just a little bit because I think this is a good segue. We can go back to the rest of it here in just a minute. But David Chipman, the internet reminded us of who he is and what he did.
If you don't know who David Chipman is, let me go ahead and refresh. David Chipman is an ATF agent. He's been about a life career ATF agent. He's been loyal to the ATF and has sold his soul to the devil. I have it on good authority.
All the way back to the Branch Davidians.
Yep, and he stood above a burning, soldering mass of dead children and women and took pictures with a big smile on his face with his little sniper rifle and his boonie hat, and he was just so happy that he got to witness the death of these people. And he has come back under the Biden administration wanting to be the savior again that he was during Waco, where all those lives were saved.
Yep, he wants to be big boss.
He wants to be the big boss. He wants to be the head of the ATF, which Biden wanted him to be there. Biden was like, absolutely, yeah. And then, after finding out that even some Democrat people who were like, this guy's kind of radical, man. We don't know if we want this. In fact, this guy's kind of probably going to get the people to actually do some January 6th crap again.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say. I think that the Democrats, they actually saw the writing on the wall that the fellas that always joke about the great boog were no longer joking.
Right.
And they were afraid that if they put him in, that they would lose their power.
Yeah, and David Chipman is a scoundrel. He hates America, and he hates the rights of free American citizens. That is his life objective, is to rob you and your family of the right to protection so he can kill them. That is his entire due purpose for the deep state. And I know that sounds really harsh, but it is what it is.
But because of you, ladies and gentlemen out there, one, telling people about how much of a scoundrel this guy is, contacting your senators, thankfully also Rand Paul interviewing him and doing his due diligence and getting the truth out there of what a liar he is. He even lied about during that raid, saying that the Branch Davidians shot a 50 caliber rifle at one of their helicopters. They didn't have a 50 caliber rifle assembled.
Right.
Thankfully, we were able to thwart him. So we need to count this as a win. And I do think that people on the right need to remember we need to celebrate our wins.
Yeah, that was you, America. It's a small win in this massive battle that we've got going on, in this war that is being waged against us. Mind you, we're not waging anything. We're just wanting to be left alone. That's the motto.
Mm-hmm.
Leave us alone and you won't have any trouble. But they don't want to leave us alone. And that's okay. Trouble? Bring it on. We're troubled. You know what I mean? So
well, and with that, I'm glad you mentioned that. So I want everybody to celebrate this and take it as a win, but I don't want you to sit down. I have a favorite phrase. In one of these days, I'm going to get it inked on me. It says, "On the plains of hesitation lie the blackened bones of countless millions, who in the dawn of victory sat down to rest, and in resting died."
Cheers to that.
That was from a Soldier of Fortune magazine back in the early 2000s.
Yep.
We need to stay vigilant, as the vigilance is, and be ready for when the next thing that the enemy does. But I just wanted to get that out there. One more thing about 9/11, just reversing back a little bit. Very troubled because I don't know how many troops, our men and women that went over to Afghanistan after 9/11 died. I know it's in the thousands.
Right. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And again, just like we've talked about with all this stuff, I just can't help but feel all those lives were for nothing now.
That is, and it's one of those things. So, yeah, let's talk about Afghanistan. Let's talk about the 20-year war. And, historically speaking as well, even Biden said it in the intro video. He's like, oh, this is the graveyard of nations. Well, Soviet Union pulled out of Afghanistan and they shortly fell shortly afterwards. But, it's just something, it's something to consider. Don't freak out. America has got something called the free market right now, at least, kind of, sort of. So we probably pull through just fine. But here's something with that is, we've talked to veterans. Specifically, we have a Vietnam friend who served in Vietnam. And we asked him his opinion. And you can remember that and so on and so forth. But the main thing that I'm kind of getting at is it truly all for nothing? And that is the problem with how wars have been waged since Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Under this country. And that's just it. Is if we won, it wouldn't have been a problem. We could have won in 1 year. There's no reason to send our boys and men, and in some cases females, women, to die for 20 years for nothing. Now, let me explain this though. Now that we pulled out, stay out. And that's a shameful thing, but it's not our call. Well,
here's what I think should be done. And actually I posted this also in the show
notes.
The show notes show stuff.
Yeah.
I found an article back in 2003 from Soldier of Fortune magazine. And the author had a very interesting, he's an ex-Special Forces guy that was over there. At that time, they'd been in country, so fighting in Afghanistan for 2 years. And he had already figured out what it took us 20 years to figure out in this article.
Right.
That staying there and trying to make it a free nation was useless because these people didn't want a free nation.
Right.
The people there did not support it.
Yeah, they didn't want that. That's not their business,
And it's just, he said, he explains, it's a different culture. He also stated that he would rather be a dog in the United States than a woman in Afghanistan.
Oh, absolutely.
this fella, his name is Paul Avail, and he said what needs to be done is to pull all our people out, and because he said they are actually the bad guys. The Taliban went across the borders when they went in, right? So they would come in and then fight them a little bit, just like Vietnam. Okay, same song, second verse. There was a magical line that they could cross and be safe. He said, so let's pull our people out so they think it's safe to come back in, and then we can do small unit tactics with special operations and cruise missiles to kill them.
Yep. And that's just
That's
the
what needs
sadness
to
of it,
happen.
too. And you know what? I agree. We could have salvaged what little dignity we had left and made the war not in vain, and could have just done a little bit more. But that
Well,
being
and
said,
he said it would have been a lot cheaper too. He said even by this point he was showing how many billions of dollars it was for all of our guys to be over there, and it would have been a lot cheaper to do small operations and cruise missiles.
absolutely, and so much less life lost. We have the technology, and I get it. For all you war buffs out there who like sit there and be like, oh, well, war just isn't honorable anymore. What? Screw off, man. War has never been about honor, and there's no shaking about it. Any war, like between the samurais or whatever fantasy you have in your head as far as there being honor involved, was more of a melodramatic theater show, not an actual war. I'll show you actual war. You have to just go back a little bit before the Napoleonic theater nerds took over and look at the Vikings. Look at Romans, Persians, the African tribes. That's war.
Yep.
Ruthlessness, mercilessness, death, destruction, decay. War, on one hand, is necessary, but you have to know your limits, and you have to know when to go into it. And when you've made that decision, like we did, to go in after 9/11 to avenge our fallen and to do right by our people and their grieving mothers and fathers, we should have gone in and eradicated the threat. Not, but he didn't have two guns on him. He only had one. Why'd you shoot him? That's not honorable. That's not very gentle. They only have AKs. Why did you use a drone strike on them? That's not fair. That's a war crime. Get the hell out of here.
And with honor, and this writer has a really good point about he doesn't understand when and how. Let me read this part. It makes me wonder if the academic and bureaucratic hacks who sold our political and military leaders on this pipe dream concept of nation building and freedom farming weren't packing their pipes with hallucinogenics.
Yeah.
Afghani people, what they've left out of the equation is the concept and fatal flaw. The Afghan culture itself. I cannot imagine how we can build a nation in a culture of desperate tribes who disdain one another and only unite to expel pesky invaders like the British and Russians before us.
Or like the Native Americans as well. Well, wait.
No, we kicked their ass.
Yeah, and that's just the difference. That's just the difference, isn't it? Where it's like we went in, and if we're going to nation build, here's the thing, and Hans Hermann Hoppe is a capitalist theologist, I guess, or philosopher. He's a German or like Austrian or something. He said something interesting, and it's capitalists cannot live in peace with communists. That is to say, in a capitalist nation, you can't have a communist person within it.
Mm-hmm.
And he used a term, it was a very polite term, it's even a meme now, called physically remove them. You have to physically remove them. And the same applies to warfare. especially in this ridiculous peaceful nation building, like you can convince the enemy, like you can convince your enemy. Imagine it. Okay, so you go to a bar and there's this belligerent drunk dude. He's a belligerent asshole. And he starts like, I don't know, say you brought your wife, like, I don't know, let's say Chili's, because that makes sense for you to bring your wife to Chili's. And this dude comes over and he just like totally backhand, like no reason, just backhands your woman for like no reason. And you get up and instead of rocking, socking, beating his ass, you say, hey, whoa, man. Don't you think that was a little messed up? What are you doing?
Right.
You know, like, because immediately any moral man would get up and rock his shit. And look at 9/11. Osama bin Laden or whoever little cronies that are under him. Why did we like, yeah, we're going to whoop you, man. We're going to whoop you the moment we get there. Oh, just stop. You need to understand that we're not the bad guy. That we didn't do anything to you. So please stop. That's not how you deal with that.
And that's, again, going back to the whole nation building thing. So our military was never designed to build nations.
It was meant to
Our
destroy
military
them.
does, correct. Our military, and this is to borrow a phrase again from Rush Limbaugh. Our military was built for two things: to kill people and break things.
Amen.
And so it's actually kind of funny to me. I saw this. This has been a long time ago because I still remember them back in the day as comics. Now we would call them memes. But there was this comic way back in the day about that and about the Vietnam War. It had a bulldog, and you know what a bulldog typically portrays in the U.S. military, right?
Yeah,
the Marine Corps.
Angry, yeah.
Yeah, and he was on a leash, and this guy was like, well, are you going to take your bulldog off the leash and teach him to play nice with the kids? And the guy's looking at him like, are you a moron?
Right. Well, that's just it. It's like so weird to me that we went into these nations with this weird, I guess, leftover 60s hippie mentality. Yeah, I know. Make fun of me, my long hair, my denim jacket. But listen, like...
Yeah, I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
I know. It's because hey, you have a peace helmet, or you have a peace sign on your helmet and Born to Kill on it. What are you trying to say? I think it's a concept of the duality of man.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this young man is wearing bell bottoms.
Damn right.
Just thought you ought to know that.
I'm gonna lift my leg up on camera. Take your feet pics, everybody. Check it out. Yeah, baby. You haven't seen that in a long time.
I knew you would.
Look at these shoes, baby. Look at them.
So let's time out from the serious talk here for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to. So, John's been a good friend of mine for a long time now, and trying to help a brother out, right? And I told him, because he was just like, hey, I'd like to, find me a sweet young thing someday. And I was like, yeah, man, I know you will. I said, you're a good-looking guy. I said, but I think maybe, let's like try changing up your style a little bit, And he's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That sounds like a good idea. And see, I thought changing up John's style would be like getting him in some nice khaki pants and a polo. And he comes up with this. So I mean,
I walk up, I'm like, yeah, I changed my style, man. I walk up, I'm wearing a denim jacket with way high, like I'm talking like my gooch is in a knot with these bell-bottom jeans, because that's how high he wore them. Where I'm high up. I'm walking up to his house like Bee Gees. Well, I changed up my style, and he's like, just kind of that look. And it is kind of a joke at first, but I actually kind of looked at these things, and I'm like, wow, I actually really like how I look in these. Now, I haven't really figured the top bit out, but yeah, that's just it. I love my bell bottoms. I'm trying to bring it back, man. I get all kinds of old people smiling their asses off of me. It's great.
I was just gonna say that. I am sure there is some widow woman in her 60s that would love to have you in those bell bottoms.
Well, I'm kind of an old soul. Come here, Grandma. Let's go jungle boogie until the night's out.
Oh, Lord help us.
Jungle boogie, jungle boogie, break it down here. I wish old IT was here. He's still at work until 8. But
Yeah.
no, that's just it. And anyways, like on that serious topic, Afghanistan had no excuse the last 20 years. That I will give to the opposing factor as far as the war after about 2 years in should have been made clear to the American people that the leaders in charge want this to go on and they don't want it to end. And we should have risen up again and said, no more, either you finish it now or we're out.
Right.
And now we've got this mess with Biden where 13 Marines were killed again because they were told that they cannot. You gotta be nice people. You gotta be nice to these people who hate you and want to kill you and rape your dog. You gotta be nice. And it's gotten old, and I've gotten tired, and I've gotten sick. Because I'm a kind person. I love people. I'm kind of an extrovert. I love being around people. I love learning about cultures. Put me in the tent with a powwow. Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I would have a great time with a bunch of Native Americans smoking a peace pipe. You know what I mean? I am not a bigot. I'm not an xenophobe. I don't know, whatever. I'm not the critter from Alien. Xylophone, as they would call me. I don't know. But that being said, it's not about that. It's about we are at war and we need to stop pretending like we're daycare nannies, I guess, for a nation. Mm-hmm. That's really the problem, is like, we're not daycare nannies. We came here, if there's a reason our military exists, as you said, is to kill. Especially the Marine Corps. And the fact that it was 13 Marines is a dead giveaway. That our leaders in charge don't care about our boys out there. Because if you would have put the Marines back from the 40s, World War II, in those shoes, shoot, man. Yeah, there might be some civilian casualties, but they'd be doing their effing job. They'd be getting their Americans out.
Right.
You know. And so that's just it. It's like, that's the disgrace to me. After living 20 years now. I was 4 years old when this nation was attacked, and I'm 24 now. And now I'm being told that the war that I was wondering about and pondering my entire life, that has been going on my entire life, excluding 3 years, which is like 3 seconds, excluding those 3 seconds of my life, this war is ending in an insulting disgrace against the country that I have lived in and that I have loved in and that I hope that my children's grandchildren get to enjoy, is just this spit in the face, we're not worthy. And it's our leaders, the people we've elected, and that's debatable if we even have a democracy anymore in our republic, if we're even a republic of democracy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not clear. And then now I'm being told, like, it's a freaking book, man. It's a freaking sci-fi horror story. It's Black Mirror. If you've ever watched that show, but that's just what it is. You know, it's this bizarre idea where it's like, yeah, we live in the land of the free, and you know, you're proud to be an American because at least you know you're free. But here's the transition. You have to take every one of your employees, and if they don't do what the government tells them to, you fire them, because that is your duty to your government. In news, COVID-19, Biden and his administration has passed a bill that any employer that's any company, mind you, any company, don't get it twisted, must make sure every one of their employees are vaccinated if they have over 100 employees.
Yep.
And 100 isn't just like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's only going to affect people like Walmart. Do you know how many small businesses? My father, running that truck shop on the side of the road,
Had 100 employees at least.
He had 80 at his peak. That's not very far off. And I couldn't imagine businesses that got bigger than his that have 100 but are still struggling.
And there's lots of small businesses because you're considered a small business all the way up to 500 employees.
Exactly.
Okay. And so there's lots of small businesses that are going to be affected by this. If everyone takes this seriously, my company that I work for will fall under this. And I can tell you right now, I've thought about it long and hard, and I'm not getting the vaccination, and I am not getting weekly testing.
Yeah. It's
not going to happen.
I am a full-grown man, damn it. And even full-grown women. And trust me, there are plenty of females out there on board with this. It's not just us two, me and you, two little bros having a hissy fit on the side of the street. And this is another thing, too. We are not the minority. There are people gathering every day, even pro people who have been vaccinated. People who have been vaccinated rising with the cause to say, no, you will not breach this line. And I'm just sitting here 20 years after the first attack of my country's freedoms of my lifetime, being 9/11, and now it's just this diplomatic, bureaucratic garbage, just accept it. Mm-hmm. It's angering. It's freaking infuriating.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the people that are on our side that actually also have been vaccinated. Because I've said this time and time again, and I've said it on the show. If you want to get vaccinated, that's fine. I don't care. Just don't tell me I have to.
Right. And even if you tell me, hey, man, you should go get vaccinated, I'm not worried about that. If you tell me, yeah, you should, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I like your advice, but I'm not going to do it.
That's freedom of speech.
That's fine.
I'm talking about a company or a government that requires you to. Yeah. You are going to do this, Jonathan, or we're going to take away your livelihood.
Exactly. And it's well, we're not forcing you to do anything. Yes, you are. You are taking our lives away from us. From people who are peaceful people. You are taking our way of feeding our families away from us because of some bullcrap, self-thought of, heroic morality that is as hollow as your freaking head is. I'm completely honest. I am so infuriated with this. It is no business of anyone to force anything upon a peaceful people, especially in this country. And that being said, that goes on down in the Congo. I don't care. That goes on in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, China, name every other country. It goes on in England. That goes on in Canada. I don't care. Because that's not here. That's not home of the free. None of these places have guaranteed you freedom. This place has. And if this place has forgotten that, then there's going to be a lot of dead people in the streets. And it's not going to be something that anybody wants. And that's something I want out of the way, is that I am not looking forward to thinking about having to live in some fucking dirt shack, shacked up, fucking, sorry I'm cussing, I had a steak, I went for a swim, I got my testosterone up. I'm not looking forward to living as a starving third grade world citizen because your morality told me I had to. That's not moral. You're robbing people. And that's my beef with that. Like I said, if you're neutral on it, you don't want to force this on people, you have I think people should get vaccinated, but I don't think they should be made to. Then stand up. Fight with us, man. Speak with us before it erupts into bloodshed. Because there's a lot of things fighting right now. Between the gun rights, between COVID-19, between all these freaking factors. And America is waking up, and it's getting scary because there's coming a brick wall. We're approaching it Mach 12. And the fence here that we're all pretending to lean on, it's going to crumble, and we're going to land on one side or the other. There's going to be no room for, well, I don't know, maybe we don't. There's going to be no more of that. It's going to be A and B, yes or no. And that's what I'm warning people for tonight. But I know that was a bit of a rant. That's my beef with forcing crap onto people who are peaceful. You want to transition to our next topic, or do you have anything else to say?
Yes. Well, no, I think you did her good there.
Good.
So there's a topic that really, I feel, got our show going into high gear. An update. And that's the update on the Epstein case.
Wow. You know, that's how I was sitting back, like, talking about this before the show started. I saw you had an update on the Epstein case, and I was like, oh my goodness. You know, it's kind of like that cold case that you haven't heard about in, like, forever come back to light.
And just finally comes back, yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, you know, because this right here is all intertwined with all of this. COVID-19, I'll be honest, one of the side effects, I don't think it's the main objective, but this is definitely one of the objectives of the elite. COVID-19's big panic is to get everyone to forget about the Wayfair cases, to forget about Epstein, to forget about his island, to forget about Clinton, to forget about Tom Hanks, all of these people in the Black Book that spent their time diddling children. And I'm not going to call them young women, children. You know, these people went out.
Yeah, if you're 30 something and you're messing with a 14-year-old, that's a child.
Yeah.
You know,
leave that to the 15-year-olds. They're having a hard enough time already. I was 15, and I had my girl snatched by a 30-year-old, and her parents were totally cool with it. Not cool, dude. And screw you, by the way. But that being said, like, there's all this crap with Epstein and everything, but I'm so glad to have a break. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the show that got the topic that got is Today the Day Media on its feet. What kept us going and what kept us interested into why we started our show. We have a break. Here it is. Prince Andrew. Let's see here. I'm looking through the notes. Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine.
So go ahead and keep us talking.
I can go ahead and basically start talking about it. So, Prince Andrew, who was accused of more or less diddling / raping one of Jeffrey Epstein's, quote, sex slaves. What was her name? I have it written down here somewhere. Anyways, it's the young lady you can see Prince Andrew with, and also was one of Epstein's main girls that was on the island.
Yep.
She was, quote, lent out to Prince Andrew for a night while he was on the island, and he had sexual relations with her. And since she's underage, that means he raped her. That's statutory rape.
Right. Did you say Virginal Roberts was her name?
Virginia. Virginia, sorry.
Yeah, you had a typo there. Virginal. I was like, what kind of freaking poor
Virginal.
kid? That's a weird
She's
name.
not virginal no more. Virginia Roberts was her name. She's 38 years old now. She's got 4 kids. But she still is troubled by the things that were done to her. She was groomed by Epstein and Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine, to be a sex slave. And she was lent out to Andrew for a night, and now that is coming to home. His chickens are coming home to roost for him with that. New York is trying to indict Prince Andrew back to the United States to face trial. He is refusing, and he's been there for like, I think, 76 days now, on his 96 acre royal mansion property. And as long as he stays there, by the laws in Britain, since he's royalty, they can't give him the summons because they can't go on the property. And so it's kind of become an issue, but they do have people waiting, I guess, around the clock in case he does leave. And the minute he leaves, they are going to issue him that summons.
Right. So I'm glad that they're at least doing that much, keeping the monster in his cage for now. It's a very luxurious cage. And honestly,
very luxurious.
So
96 acres. I could live on 96 acres for the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, man. Like, I would... me being who I am, man, if I had the funding, I would take a note straight out of the special operations of Nicaragua against Manuel Noriega. I would go over there with speakers, everybody way, yo, for like, hours on end.
Of course, we have a crappy presidency right now, all the way around. If I was, say, Trump, and I had won, and I was still president, or whatever president you want to put in there. Me, Tyrell. If I was president, and this was going on, I would send the SEAL teams over to, and I don't care if it pisses Britain off or not, I would send the SEAL teams over to Britain to parachute onto his 96-acre ranch, take his ass in the middle of the night by helicopter back to frickin' New York.
Yep, and that's what I would do. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, these are high-profile targets. Don't get misled by the media or by our court systems to say, oh, these are just like some guys, you wouldn't do that for anybody else. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we wouldn't. But these are people who control other people. They need to be held accountable.
These are powerful people. Yep. The royal family is very powerful.
Right.
Make no mistake about that. And that's the reason why Britain's trying to circle their wagons around Andrew. They're not helping the United States with this indictment.
Yeah, it's because it's infested their government as much as ours. All the world superpowers are intertwined in this circle.
Correct. I have a tendency to believe, and I don't believe the whole lizard crap or anything, but I do have a tendency to believe that the one world government is already in place. Truly. We just don't know it.
Hey, Tyr, do you have any input on the Epstein cases?
I wish I was invited to the island.
Well, hey, it's okay. He's 15, everybody. It's okay. I was about to say, it's okay.
You and Virginia Roberts could have had a good time legally.
I was about to say, I'm like, come on, dude, why'd you do that? And I was like, hey, it's okay, he's 15. He has more business that being there than anybody else who was over there. That would be okay, I guess. I mean, other than the whole, employees, slaves that it was. But
yeah, still slaves. Yeah,
it's not really
not
moral.
Okay with that, but
if they weren't slaves, I would be okay with Tyr doing that because he's 15.
Yeah.
Nah,
exactly.
When I was 15, I wish I would. Yeah.
He was talking. What was that?
Sorry, was that Tyr?
I don't really have an opinion on it, but
bring the pedos to justice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the problem with Tyr going over there though, they probably would have hired him. I
was gonna say, I don't know. They might have made you a slave, Tyr.
Yeah.
You'd have a lot of money in your pocket if you kept quiet though. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come here, Tyr.
I was going to say, the rest of it might not be so good, though.
Do the Bill Clinton voice for more spirit. Come here, Tyr.
Hey there, Tyr. How you doing today? How about you come on in here and give me a massage? You know what I'm saying? I'm getting a little bit... This right shoulder is getting a little stiff, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's gonna be great. This has been a really good episode. Ghislaine Maxwell. Another break, or not really a break, but she's still in prison. Thank the Lord she's still locked up. I mean,
Yes.
I'm kind of for like I said, the coyote thing. Just hang them, be done with it. But she's still in prison, and here's the thing: she's not enjoying her time there, which also puts a big old smile on my face. Truly, I'm so happy that she's miserable, the evil wretch of a woman. I'm so happy that I can say that bad things happen to bad people too. She is so miserable with her living conditions. Ghislaine is in the Brooklyn jail awaiting trial still, and her lawyer is complaining about her living conditions. Oh, the poor baby. That include melted plastic in her microwave meals and vermin in her cell and an overflowing toilet 1 floor above her that makes her cell smell like crap. My poor baby. My poor Ghislaine Maxwell. That poor woman, all the crimes against children that she's ever committed, I forgot. Because of all the plight she's paid for it. Yeah, screw you. Go straight to hell, Ghislaine. You know, what an evil, wretched woman. And I'm so glad that she's actually brought this up to a lawyer. Now, could you imagine being the lawyer? Like, I have some sympathy for that guy. Truly. Just doing his job as, a representative for people.
And that's just to see, defense attorneys, they kind of have a hard job, right? Yeah. Because, that's part of our Constitution is everybody gets represented. So, no matter, even if you know that this person is guilty as sin, your job is to defend them.
Right. Because I doubt that, this lawyer just, woke up that day, I am bringing one of the most evil women in American history's complaints about her jail cell to a court today.
Well, okay. So let me make a caveat, though. Right. So this woman's rich, right?
Oh, yeah.
So she can afford a really, really, really good lawyer.
Yeah, this ain't no Better Call Saul. This is beyond that.
With that said, what I've noticed is the really, really, really good lawyers have no morals. They don't care. As long as you pay them.
It's all about the money.
Mercenaries.
Correct. There used to be a lawyer on 1390. I forget his name. And he would do different lawyer jokes and everything. But he was on Car Talk with Glenn Gent and Horace Neeson. I don't know if you ever listened to Car Talk or not on Saturdays, but on Saturdays on 1390 they do this Car Talk thing, and he was on there, and he let slip something that really bothered me because they were talking about this one guy that was a pedophile in the Farmington area, and it was a joke, but you could tell it was serious too. He said, "Well, pedophiles are only pedophiles if they can't afford their bills."
Damn. Golly, that is.
And he was joking about it,
right?
But it's true.
I was about to say, man, that's
criminal
true.
Is not a criminal until proven guilty.
Yeah, you're in the land of the free if you have the money.
Well, that's just it. He was saying as long as you have enough money, it doesn't matter if you're guilty.
Which is interesting.
They can even prove that you were guilty, and he will find a way out of it for you.
It's really interesting, old Ghislaine, though, that she's still in jail. It's really kind of, I think that's a justice of God thing. I'm surprised that she didn't just walk off with a slap on the wrist.
I'm surprised she didn't hang herself already.
I wonder if that's going to be the next break.
Could be. Maybe one of those vermin, those rats, is going to gnaw a hole in her jugular vein. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be me.
Or she'll choke on the plastic. She'll choke on the plastic in her food.
Right. Or she'll end up like that ex-KGB guy and just get a massive dose of plutonium from the food ration.
The poop water above is going to have plutonium in it.
Right,
she's gonna be like fucking ammonia poisoning.
Yes, exactly.
She's gonna wake up and it's gonna be like that scene from the Boondock Saints, where it's like a toilet falling on her head because it falls through the floor. You know, that's what it's gonna be. There's gonna be like footage of it, like a toilet on like her head as she's in the bed. That'd be pretty great.
It wasn't our fault. It's just like the floor gave way. But yeah, so there's that.
Jackhammering noise up above.
Exactly. And it'll be like the I don't know if you're aware of this, Tier, but so when Epstein, quote, hung himself, did you know that all the cameras stopped working for those 15 minutes?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, huh? That's a big coincidence, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
I was about to say, that's like all kinds of things happen like that. I mean, there's nothing weird about it. It just happens every day.
No. And the guard that was supposed to be watching Epstein fell asleep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All those at the same time. It's just coincidence, you know.
But on this day in history, the United States was attacked 20 years ago on September 11th in the early morning hours. It has affected each of our lives considerably and irreversibly. It was a tragedy that will be remembered for many years to come. And it is our job to keep alive the memories and the reasons of why we talk about what we do and remember 9/11. It is important for us who do remember it to keep this story alive and remind those further on down the line, just like our forefathers, speaking of liberty, of why we must secure our freedom. Because there are people and tyrants, foreign and domestic, that would wish to rip them away from us. And for that, we give you a God bless. God bless you, America, Democrat and Republican alike. God bless this country. May the Lord above have mercy on us despite our strays away. And may we find peace with each other through an understanding of humanity and Christ's help. Let us just remember 9/11, the tragedy it was, and why we must never let something like that happen again.
Amen.
You know, that's truly it, and that's why I wanted to end the show on that is...
And with the ending of that show, ladies and gentlemen, we wouldn't be doing this unless we felt sometime along the lines, somebody is going to be listening to this. Right now, we don't have a huge following, but we're working on that. And if you hear this show and you thought it was good and you feel like maybe giving us a little thank you, gratitude, so we can keep doing this show, you can contact on our Facebook page or through Messenger. And, if you want to throw us a buck or two, we'd appreciate it so we can get better equipment and be able to make this show better and better.
You can find my Facebook page at... You can search my name. I don't know what my URL is. I was recently, and this has sent our Facebook page into a spiral. We don't really know what's going to happen with that, and we've pretty much vacated Facebook entirely. But you can still contact my Facebook at Jonathan space ITTDM. That's Is Today the Day Media abbreviated. Jonathan ITTDM if you want to send me a message, or even just want to ask us questions, what our goals are, what we're doing. If you want to discuss with us, we'd be happy to talk to you. But also, if you like what we have to say and you want us to grow larger and more official and have better equipment to get our message across with better shows, better content, go ahead and feel free to give us a donation. We do have plans in order to get that, as far as donations actually can get you content, as well as far as early shows, talking with us before we do shows, merchandise, basically.
And those premium snaps.
Those premium snaps, absolutely. Premium pictures of my bell-bottom jeans without shoes on
Yes.
are included.
Yes.
But also shirts, mugs, hoodies, the whole 9 yards. Just to show off that you're an American patriot and you care about this country just as much as we do. So thank you very much for everyone who listens. Thank you, patriots, and thank you, Americans and foreigners. Have an understanding. We appreciate your patronage, your continued support, and your love for freedom and liberty and your family, most importantly. We appreciate that you love your family. That is something we appreciate truly. So thank you for your continued support. We'll be back next week, throughout the week, just like we were this week. Ciao.
Bye.